Welcome to NALI 2020.
NALI 2020.
NALI 2020.
NALI 2020. Cenggini.
NALI 2020. NALI 2020.
Visit our virtual STEM competition. Just follow this very simple step. First, check the STEM Made competition schedule in the website. Second, follow the schedule accordingly. Third, go to Facebook page NALI 2020. Fourth, you will see the pin post of the STEM Made schedule accordingly in the post. Do enjoy the STEM Made competition. You can also view all the sessions in the video tabs. Then click on the video playlist STEM Made competition to view all the STEM Made presented by our participants. To enjoy our virtual STEM Made competition, and don't forget to like and share.
Visit our NALI exhibition virtual booth. Just follow two simple steps to get there. First, you go to the Facebook page of NALI 2020. Second, you find the photo tabs and then click on the photo album of NALI 2020 virtual exhibition. You're now able to view all the posters of NALI practices in teaching and learning. Do enjoy our virtual exhibition booth, and the poster with the most likes will be awarded the People's Choice Award. So visit us now and don't forget to like and share.
Visit our NALI 2020 Symposium. Just follow this very simple step. First, check the NALI 2020 Symposium schedule in the website. Second, follow the schedule accordingly. Third, go to Facebook page NALI 2020. Fourth, you will see the pin post of the symposium schedules accordingly in the pin post. Do enjoy your symposium. You can also view all the session by first using the hashtag NALI 2020 Symposium. Or second, find the photo tabs, then click on the timeline photo to view all the symposium presented by our participants. Do enjoy our virtual symposium session and ask questions directly to the speaker under the comment section, and don't forget to like and share.
Right, okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And welcome to everyone. So welcome to NALI 2020, an event for educators and researchers to display their work in teaching and learning. Right, in NALI 2020, we have a keynote, a plenary, and also the forum session. All right, so today we will have Professor Teknologis Dr. Zaidatun Tasir from Dean of Faculty of Social Science and Humanities, Universiti Teknologi Malaysia. She will deliver a plenary speech titled Innogogy Blended Learning. Right. So before we start this session, I would like to read some of biography of our honored speakers. Professor Teknologis Dr. Zaidatun Tasir is a professor of educational technologies at the Department of Educational Science, Maths, and also Creative Multimedia, School of Education, Faculty of Social Science and Humanities, Universiti Teknologi Malaysia. She is the Dean of Faculty of Social Science and Humanities 2019 to 2021. Right? She also is the recipient of Anugerahas YB Menteri Pendidikan Malaysia AKRI 2019. Right? Her research interests and expertise include design and development of computer and web-based instruction, multiple intelligence through computer-based instruction, problem-based learning through technology, social networking tools in education, and online social learning model. Before we start the session, I would like to invite everyone in this session to raise the question in the chat box for Q&A question after this, right? Without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Teknologis Dr. Zaidatun Tasir to deliver her speech. The floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Fazli Rashid, for the brief introduction about myself. Okay, today I will share with all of you my works after 25 years working related to innovation in learning and teaching. I will share the topics under what we call it Innogogy, Immersive Learning Innovation through Innovative Pedagogies and Technology. So this is day 2 of NALI 2020. So let me actually share with all of you a little bit on what I have been done related to Innogogy. Okay. As we know nowadays, the learning spaces of the students, especially during COVID-19 situations, the students have not a specific learning spaces. Their learning spaces can be anywhere around the place that they are staying. It can be in any fast food outlet. It can be in a shopping center. It can be in a library, in a bus, or maybe at the beach, and might be at their home. And this is the realities that as an educators, as a future ready educators, the learning spaces of students is anywhere. Beside the learning spaces, the learning community has been transformed a lot, especially during this COVID-19. The learning community is not only involved the students and the lecturers or professors and their peers, but it will involve their sibling, their kid, their son, their daughter. It also will involve their neighbor and also their grandma and grandfather. So anything around there will be the learning communities nowadays. And this is where that we have to know that the learning community is everyone near the student, especially when the student having an online classes at home. So let us look at the learning evaluations that went through the process of learning and teaching, especially in higher ed. According to DV 1938, the theory of inquiry has been introduced, the concept of communities of learning. And if we look at the context of DV in terms of learning in a community nowadays, it's related to using the web pages, the learning management system, and the Facebook group. But this is not actually the current state. What happened nowadays that we can see around us, that the learning in the community has transformed into what we call it learning with the crowd, where we have MOOCs, Facebook pages, the webinars, the session that we have it today. We are less structured and have a cohort less base, because in the class they are not actually consist of student at the same age, but they can actually consist of student at different level. And with that, the student needs to have several attributes to be an independent learners, such as the peer scaffolding skills, the high social present awareness, intelligence, wisdom in learning, peer assessment, and self-assessment. This is partly or part of the attributes that the student nowadays should have if they would like to survive nowadays at the very challenging situation in higher ed. Let us talk about my topics today, which is actually the Innogogy. The Innogogy, the time when I compute or come up with the terms of Innogogy, I look at what are the things that have been done throughout 25 years of my career at UTM. I can see that I'm actually looking at the innovative pedagogies. I'm working a lot with all the innovative pedagogies that we can use in higher ed. And I actually integrate the innovative pedagogy in the technology. So with that, I have an idea and I come up with the words, what we call it, Innogogy. You can see is that the technology ending with logi and the pedagogy is actually ending with gogi. Okay, so what are actually the types of innovative pedagogies that I implement in my teaching and learning? I use several innovative pedagogies in my teaching and learning. One of it is reflective learning, the social collaborative learning, the heterogogy, pedagogy, and cybergogy, problem solving, flipped classroom, problem-based learning, and scenario and case study. And I embed it into the technological tools such as Facebook, learning management system, blog, mobile mobile device, Flipgrades, and other applications like Padlet, and tools that we can have it nowadays through the online medium. And I call it as immersive blended learning innovation. This is a part of the innovations that I joined ACRI in 2019, and Alhamdulillah, I've been awarded one of the winners of ACRI 2019. So maybe some of you think about how do I embark into these kinds of innovative pedagogy and implement it in technology. Actually, my background is actually in computer science education. So when I teach a computer science based subject, and I wondering that how can I actually not only make the learning and teaching interesting among the student, but me myself as the educators, as the facilitator in the class, I would like to feel that I'm excited, I'm enjoying teaching it. This is where I came up with the ideas that why not looking at all the innovative pedagogies that we have in educations, that we can implement it through technology. Okay, this is about my journey, a little bit about my journey since 1995 when I joined UTM. At that moment, I worked a lot with learning management system and courseware. My PhD, I did my PhD in multiple intelligence, focusing on the personalized learning. So I have been used online discussion, problem solving in online learning platforms in 1995. Then I moved to in 2000, 2004, I embarked more on the innovative pedagogies that concentrate on problem-based learning, scenario, and collaborative learning. And at that moment, I still using learning management system. In 2005, 2009, when blog has been quite popular among the higher ed students, then I use again, and I actually integrate the innovative pedagogy using blogs and LMS. When we focus on LMS, I use it a lot in my online discussion forum. In 2010, 2014, where apps has been introduced a lot in higher eds. So in 2010, I started to apply a research grants that I developed several apps for my classes, for teaching and learning in my class. And I use Facebook also as part of the mediums for the students to socialize and discuss about their learning. And in 2015 and 2020, I embarked into heterogogy, pedagogy, and cybergogy. These three innovative pedagogy is totally aligned with the environments of technology in teaching and learning. And I use apps, Facebook, Flipgrades in my teaching and learning. This is a part of it. Okay, 25 years. Okay, how to? Today, I would like to share how to actually integrate the innovative pedagogy in technological tools, focusing on teaching and learning. First of all, you as an educators, we have to aim, we have to ask ourselves, what are the things that we like to focus in higher ed? We are not only working in the university around 5 to 10 years. If you stay in the same university for quite some times, like me, I have been 25 years in UTM. You will stay in the university around 25 to 30 years. okay, before you will be tired. So that's why first of all, we have to find what are the aims of our learning and teaching. My aim is that I would like to produce what we call it immersive learning. I would like my students to immerse in teaching and learning so that I would feel enjoy having my class at any times that I have, so that the student also will enjoy in your class. So immersive learning is my aim. That's the first aim, that I would like the students to immerse in the learning. The second thing is that when you talk about how learning and teaching, you have to explore on the learning theories, because learning theory is explain how people learn. You have to actually, you do not need to be a psychologist, but at least you read some articles on learning theories that tell how people learn. The next thing is that you have to find the medium. At that moment, I'm looking at blended learning as a best approach that I can use in my class, because if you're focusing totally online, like what we have nowadays, online, you might be miss some of the limitations that the online learning can give. So if you just focusing on offline, you might also going to miss you're going to miss some of the challenges, the limitation that the offline can provide to the student. So the best way is that blended learning. 3 words: immersive, the aims of my teaching and learning. I'm looking at the learning theory, how people learn, and I find the best medium, which is actually the blended learning. And last but not least, the technological tools that you should use. This is going to be the last thing that I'm going to think in selecting the best tools for my class. So with these four point, this is where you can start to actually embark into integrating the innovative pedagogies into your teaching and learning. So let me explain all these 4 factors, how I'm actually work out towards it. Okay, let us start with immersive learning. Everybody knows that immersive learning is you are placing the user in an interactive learning environment. You cannot actually encourage students to immerse in learning if you don't provide an interactive learning environment. You must actually implement what we call the real life scenario, because you have to replicate the real life scenario into your class, okay, into your learning activities. And it's about micro learning in action, because you cluster your activities into micro learning, and it's actually learning by doing. That is a part of immersive learning. And why is it actually immersive? The attention rates of the students, if you're focusing on immersive learning, the attention rate of the student, you will get 100% attention. The attention rates, like for example, one of the methods of immersive learning is virtual reality, has shown that 80% of retention rate 1 year of training compared to the traditional training as low as 20% after a week. And engagement rate also, if you're using gamified immersive learning, is the sticker than other forms of learning, the engagement rate also will be increased. And immersive learning is you can actually focusing on what I call it freedom to fail, because if you're using virtual reality in teaching and learning, especially in engineering courses, you can make a mistake. It's not going to actually affect the real life situations, but it's because it's virtual reality. So it's a freedom to fail. And teaching and learning is about experience. You experience it, you experimenting it in your teaching and learning. That is a teaching and learning. Okay. So and beside that, immersive, if we compare it with other methods like MOOCs and others, you can see the attention of student is higher in immersive learning by doing, in terms of the percentage of learning by doing. That's part of the focus of immersive learning, playful, and it allowed for repetition. And one of the another things that you can actually embark to encourage immersive learning is learning to experience by implementing the situated learning, and it will actually reduce the cognitive load, and directly it will improve the student test score. Okay, the second part, after you understand it very well about immersive learning, Yes, you have to focus on how people learn. The three main and popular learning theories in education that you should focus on is, the first one is the behaviorism, the second one is the cognitivism, and third is constructivism. These three learning theories is the three learning theories that we can focus in designing our instruction. And true behaviorism is more on looking at the studies, individual observables and measurables behavior, while cognitive is more involved on you observe the new behavioral patterns and it focuses on how to learn, while constructivism is on the learners is in control of his or her own learning. And beside that, we must always we also must know about comparing between the pedagogy, andragogy, and hedagogy. Because we are educators at higher ed, we should focusing on the andragogy and hedagogy. If you're focusing on hedagogy, it involves more on online environments, and this is one of the diagrams that differentiate between among these three methods that we can use in our teaching and learning. And of course, one thing that we have to remember is don't ever overload the students. Let them learn from the existing teaching and learning materials out there, like from YouTube. Frequently ask questions and link them to the expert. Okay. Focusing on the andragogy, there are 4 principles of andragogy that we should focus when we would like to implement the innovative pedagogy in our teaching and learning through any technological tools that you are suitable with. First, you have to know that adults need to know why they are learning something. You have to tell the student why do they need to learn this. And adults also learn through doing, even if they make a mistake. And adults are problem solver. That's why we have to focus on the innovative pedagogies like problem-based learning, problem solving, because they are problem solver. And adults learn best when the subject is of immediate use. It's related to their immediate use. They need it. So this is where the 4 principles of andragogy that we should actually look into it. Okay. And beside that, another learning theories that we should focus on is the brain-based learning. Brain is an organs that focusing on encoding informations into the humans' brains, and also the student also going to recode back what they have been learned before this from their brain. So there are 5 brain facts that influence how people learn. The first one is that the unconscious mind rules the conscious mind. Let us try it together. For those who actually join our session today through Facebook and also might be through YouTube, let us try it together. In a chair, okay, sit straight, your body. In a chair, try to extend your dominant leg, either left or right. I think most of the dominant leg is going to be the right leg, and make small clockwise circles with the foot. Okay, do that now. I'm doing it also, okay, in front of my computer. Okay, make small clockwise circles with the foot. Okay, then while continuing to perform this motion, still continue, do it with your dominant hand, might be your right hand. Draw the number 6 in the air with your index finger. What happened actually? Did your foot freeze or reverse direction? Okay, so this is where you can see that mine is actually my foot freeze, or I'm actually doing it, my foot actually continuing in a what we call in the reverse direction. So drawing the numbers of the number 6 is a learned behavior. You can actually drawing the number 6 is actually the learned behavior you can do automatically, but not the foot circle. The foot circle required conscious thought and energy. Okay, and it's often difficult to pick up a new habits or learn a new behavior. That's the reality in learning and teaching, until the behavior become automatic. And it required more mental energies. Making a behavior automatics require practice and repetition. So the foot circle action is related to the learning topic that we teach the students in our class. It's not something has been learned before by the student. So by considering the facts of brains, that the unconscious mind rules the conscious mind. Okay. The second fact is about the brain is wired to find pattern. We have to know that the brain actually try to find patterns between the nodes of the brains. Patterns will help make sense of the world, the worlds around us. So that's why when we teach certain topic, we have to recall back other topics that have been learned before this by the students, so that the brain will be wired. The second one is confusion is good for learning. Okay, some people still, when they teach in the class, they thought that they just want to go straight. No, confusion is good for learning. And mirror neurons allow us to learn from each other. Mirror neuron is something like, usually you can actually tell the student to solve this problem, you have to follow this step. So they're going to mirror the action. And if you are using these 5 brain facts through any technological tools, you can do it creatively. So, for example, confusion is good for learning. Sometimes in my class, I give a video that try to make the student confused about their understanding on the last week topic, so that they will think about it. Okay. And the last one that we have to know is that 5 brain facts, that feeling drive behavior. So that's why injecting a little bit humor in our class will actually drive the behaviors of learning. This is the 5 brain facts that influence how people learn. Okay, the third factor is on blended learning. We have to know what is blended learning. There are 2 researcher has been defined blended learning most have been cited by most researcher. First is by Graham, receiving 2,149 citations. And second one is Garrison and Kanuka, which actually received up 3,000 citations about how do they define blended learning. So Graham actually defined blended learning as face-to-face instruction with computer-mediated instruction. So simple definition. And Garrison defined blended learning as the integration, the thoughtful integrations of classroom face-to-face learning experience with the online learning experience. So it's not just transferring your PowerPoint slide and deliver it through online learning mediums such as WebEx, Zooms, and Google Meet. That's not blended learning. Blended learning need more than that. Okay, so in the blended learning also, like Allen and Seaman define it as something like course that blend online and face-to-face delivery. Substantial proportions of the content is delivered online. You can do this prior to the class sessions, where if you use this, then you use a flipped classroom concept. Typically use online discussion. You must use the online discussion to allow the student to discuss on the things that have been posted in your e-learning system prior to the class session, and typically has a reduced numbers of face-to-face meeting. Usually when you use blended learning, you can use it 2 ways. Either you start with face-to-face first, then you continue with online, and might be you continue back with face-to-face, or the other way around. You start first with online learning, and then you go to face-to-face, and then you go back to online. Okay, and the proportions of content delivered online should be 30 to 79 in blended learning. Okay. And this is a diagram to explain on the blended learning. Usually blended learning, it actually will involve like self-paced e-learning, online collaborative learning, face-to-face training, and also it will involve several media activities and events. Okay. And what is blended learning? You can see that it's a blend between human and technology, where humans is actually full with motivation, they need personalization, they need feedback from you, while the technology will actually help the student to survive in a self-study, mobility structures, and tracking and control their own learning. And why blended learning? This is some of the reasons of why we are focusing on blended learning. It meeting different needs and the learning style of the students. And it sure will provide flexibility with regard to when and where the student choose to learn. At the situation of COVID-19, blended learning is the best learning methods that we should use. But however, we not able to have face-to-face session with the student, then we have totally what we call it online, but you can blend it between synchronization and asynchronization. And with blended learning also transform how learning occurred by engaging students in the active constructions of knowledge through dynamic interaction. So meaning that blended learning required for you to have learning and teaching activities for the students so that they can interact among each other. And it will give opportunities for us also, the students and the lecturers, to develop their technology skills. And the student prefer courses that have some online component due to the generation Z, and they are actually favored towards online. And I believe blended learning will enhance the learning by allowing the use of pedagogical strategies into the learning technologies. Okay, and it'll actually facilitate the communities of inquiry. This is actually the combinations that you can see that what the traditional classroom provide to the students, and in the online learning, the student must be independent, it flexible, timely. You will give the virtual instructions, you will set the forums for the students, and they're involved in the online learning community. While the traditional classroom is more on class-based instruction, personalized learning community, you blend these two into one. Okay, and as I did mention, it's not just a matter of transferring a portion of your traditional course to the web. You have to transform your learning and teaching activities. Okay, and it involves actually developing challenging and engaging online learning activities that complement your face-to-face activities. The course design, the communication technique, the motivations are the three important factors that you should focus into it when you plan to use a blended learning, implement the innovative pedagogy in the blended learning. And this is some of the guidelines I give it to all of you that you can refer later on when you want to blend between the traditional face-to-face and online learning. And the immersive come into the design when you implement what we call it the innovative pedagogy into it. Blended learning without any pedagogies, without any specific learning activities, as proper planning learning activities, it will stay as a blended learning per se. But what you should focus is immersive blended learning. And the engaging lessons that will accomplish learning, make sure you're not only going to give the student activities, but at the end, the course learning outcome is not achieved. You have to plan the learning activities according to what you want to achieve this in your teaching and learning. And it will result in good performance on assessment and the student be engaging and effective. This is one of the learning cycles that you can use if you implement the immersive blended learning. You can start with personalized online learning by posting something in UTM e-learning system. And we are using our e-learning system, or I believe my colleagues also from other universities that join today's in the Facebook session, you have your own e-learning system at your university. So first, you have to focus on personalized online learning by giving the students activities prior to the class session. Then in the COVID-19 situation, we can't have this kind of situation anymore face to face. But what you can do is that you can do the online session, the small group instruction through online medium. Then you ask them to collaborate, to discuss. You set a forum for them to discuss, and then they will learn individually through what they have been went through on this cycle. This is the cycles that we invent during our ACRI competitions. We put it as 1 or 2 weeks learning cycles for immersive blended learning cycles. We started with the learning task, the activity online. Then we have the in-class sessions. Then we have the online learning sessions. The student need to analyze the cases and the activities that have been given before. and they will have the online self-reflection session. I give marks for online self-reflection, and through online self-reflection also you can measure the student learning process. You also can actually identify whether this learning take place or not. You also can identify any might be hints or things that plagiarism take place during preparing the assignment, the assignment report by the student. And at the end of it, the student will prepare individual group reports or online report. And this is where we divide it 50% online and 50% offline. The last component when I implement innovative pedagogy through technological tools is the tools. There are so many technological tools out there, and if you can exploit, this is actually been analyzed by the freelance Jane Hart, the top 200 tools for learning 2020. This is all the tools that I also myself did not use all of it. I used part of it, okay, in my teaching and learning. And due to the COVID-19, the ranking of the tools has been changed a lot. You can see that YouTube remain as number one as the technological tools that have been used popularly by the instructors and students. Zoom has been up to number 2. 2019 Zoom is number 8. It's been up as number 2. Google search, PowerPoint has been down a little bit, one level, and Microsoft Teams as another online learning tools that we can use during COVID-19 has been up as number 6. Microsoft Words, Google Doc has been down a little bit, and WhatsApp has been up as number 10, up 4 places from 2019. So there are so many tools there. Try to use the ones that might be you are comfortable with. Okay, when I'm focusing on the Innogogy, the innovative pedagogy to the technological tools, I have several learning tasks. The first one, I focus on the real world problem. This is one of the examples of the real world problems that I developed for my class. I'm focusing on, I provided something like your job, tools of learning, and proof of learning take place. So to make sure that when I assess the student performance, the students have to give this proof of learning. And also I allow flexibility in terms of the formats of the report for the submission of the assignment. I also focusing on developing mobile apps. This I've been done it since 2010. I develop apps for my class for teaching and learning. Usually you're able to do this if you have a research grant on it. I received a research grant in 2010 that allowed me to focusing on developing the apps for my class, and I integrate problem-solving learning activities in the apps. And I use Facebook as part of the platform for this discussion. I also focusing on the digital comic. I using a software, you can free software. I develop a scenario. This is focusing on, remember the 5 facts of brain. Number 5, you put feeling in your teaching and learning. So I'm focusing on digital comics, and this is teaching learning. This is for teaching a programming classes. I give them a story, and I also focus on reflection through blog. This I done it since 2011. In 2011, I use blog as part of my learning and teaching strategies, and I also use a Facebook discussion for the student to discuss, but not only channel them to Facebook. What I did is that I planned the tasks that they will actually discuss it to Facebook. Designing the learning tasks require creativities. How you're going to implement the innovative pedagogy related to your topic through Facebook. So this is a part of what I've been done in my teaching and learning related to Innogogy. I call all of these innovative pedagogies that I implement through the technological tools, we call it as Innogogy. And I also implement Pedagogy. And how do I do it? I have the templates. I develop a templates how to design the pedagogy learning activities. This one is focusing on double loop learning. So I develop this template for myself so that I can actually start to think creatively how to come up with the learning activities that reflect the pedagogy principles, the 21st century learning skills, and the learning tools that I will use when I come up with the learning task. And this is actually the same template I use it in designing the pedagogy learning activities. My friends from UTM, I think last 2 weeks, we had this short course, isn't it, in designing the pedagogy and pedagogy learning activities using this template. I give it free, these templates, to anyone who like to use the template. Okay, and after putting in the template like this, why do you need this template? Okay, you have to remember, teaching and learning is not isolated, is not actually separate from research. When you focus on teaching and learning, you have also to do a research on it. So by preparing these kinds of by preparing the learning tasks using this systematic template, you have a chance to submit your research finding related to teaching and learning to any index journals in education, because most of journals in teaching and learning, they are required you to have explanation or description on how you design the learning activities systematically. And after you design it, then you transfer it into e-learning system. I transfer it to this e-learning system about pedagogy. I put it all the things, the forums, the video. Remember, I mentioned I use YouTube video. So I put it inside my e-learning system as a platform for the students to go through the learning tasks. And this is another example. I use the pedagogy. I put it one by one in my e-learning. And this is an example of a student in a forum. I set the forum. You can see here, I have here the forum with the instructor, peers, and peers outside my class. They set the discussion. They can start to discuss. And these examples of the discussion of the students, by that you can actually analyze it through content analysis to measure the engagement of the student. And this is my team members. When I actually implement this Innogogy, I actually ask my colleagues also to join me. So during ACRI, this is our team members that actually try to implement the Innogogy into their own teaching and learning. And this is a website that you can access some samples of our innovative pedagogy activities through the pedagogical tools. And some of the samples we give it in the website so that all of you who join us today can actually download it and might be learn something good from the samples of the activities. Okay, let us talk about impacts of Innogogy. Having something new, innovating something, if you don't have an impact, you're not going to actually buy. And the concept not going to be buy by your friends. They will ask, especially the educators, your head of department, your university, they will ask you, what are the impacts? Whether the student has been increased in terms of performance or not. No doubt, this is actually the one that everybody would like to make sure that anything that you did in your class will actually give a positive impact in teaching and learning. I've been monitored my student performance in 2009. I had one subject, we call it authoring system. This year I did not teach it anymore, this subject, but I've been taught this subject almost 25 years. I monitor the performance of my students since 1995, but at that moment we don't have online systems to monitor the marks. UTM just started 2009 where the lecturers can key in their own marks for the students. So this is where I can see it. The average score of my students is around A minus throughout. How many semesters I did not know, taught the courses. Besides that, I actually collecting data on the critical thinking. What are their critical thinking, the pattern of the student reflection through blog. Because I produce quite numbers of paper from the practice of Innogogy in my teaching and learning. I'm looking also at the social presence. When you work with Facebook, one of the variables that you should measure is social presence. And when you work with problem solving, problem-based learning, you should measure also problem solving skills. So I measure it in my class so that I can produce paper on it, and also I can actually satisfy myself that the things that I did in my class is actually give a positive impact on student learning. Same goes to motivations. It looks like the motivation of students has been increased a lot in terms of certain factors. And I also I received quite numbers of recognitions just from this Innogogy project that have been done about 25 years. Other than that, it's focusing on my PhD student, but this is not on my PhD student research. This is about the recognition that we receive on copyrights, papers. We managed to publish in Q1 and Q2 papers when we can actually share how do we design the innovative pedagogies learning activities that we transfer it to technological tools. Okay, looking at the advantages of both, the advantages of what technology can give and the advantages of what the pedagogy can give. Okay, so with that, that's my sharing sessions for today. Remember, last words that I would like to share with all of you. Any techniques that you implement in your classroom, enjoy with the techniques. Try it more than 3 times. Don't just try it 1 time. Try it in error about it. Face the difficulty, face the challenges. Might be sometimes you face disappointment. That's okay. Try it. Be bold on it. Be passionate on doing it. Okay, with that, thank you very much. I end my sharing session with wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. I stop my screen, and might be if you have any questions, Fadli can actually pass it to me. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you, Prof, for your wonderful, inspiring speech. So now we move on to the session of question and answer. I would like to read the question given by the audience in the Facebook comment section. So from Said Rafi, what is your opinion on our new teaching and learning, which is now fully online? As you mentioned earlier, blended learning is the best way to be applied so that we will not miss both face-to-face and also learning. My question is, when we doing fully online, how can we minimize the missing part of face-to-face?
Okay, thank you, Rafi, Dr. Said Rafi, for the questions. Actually, with the situation nowadays, we don't have any other option. We have to go for online because of the COVID-19 pandemics. What I can explain, share is that, yes, I mentioned the blended learning is the best way, but with the situations of COVID-19, 100% of our learning and teaching must delivered through online. What you can do is that the things that have been not covered through the online learning medium, you still can cover it by doing what? Okay, by doing what we call it the one-to-one session. What I did in my class, this semester I actually teach open distance learning class. Open distance learning. Open distance learning is meant to be 100% online. So how do you minimize it? Because you don't have a face-to-face. What you can do is that, because through online, it involves the whole class of your students. You might miss some of the opportunity to interact with each of the students. So to minimize the things that missing in the parts of face-to-face, what you can do is that you must set a session where the student itself can get along with their friends. Okay, where I'm actually chairing my academic committee meeting this morning. I asked all my colleagues to suggest to the lecturers not just having online session where you in the session and the student and you start to teach. Set a session where you are not in it. You set your WebEx, but you are not in it. You can mute. You can just stop your camera. You can just focus on other things that you need to do, but allow the students to chat among each other through WebEx so that they can actually get along, because this is what they miss during online learning environments. Usually they have a chat session face-to-face with their friend, isn't it? Now they don't have it. So you have to give this opportunity to the student to get along by them among them. That's one. You also must have what we call it one-to-one session. And might be some of you will ask that if your class consists of 20 students, it's quite easy for you to have one-to-one. But if your class consists of 200, 300, how come you're going to have a one-to-one? Of course, that one is quite impossible to do that. But what you can do is that to just to close the gap between face-to-face and online, one-to-one session, set a group, informal sessions where the student going to discuss among each other. Next, what you can do is that use a backup room, WhatsApp, and everything, any means that you can actually reach the students. That is what I can share to Dr. Syed Rafi. I'm actually at Educational Technologies. I believe totally 100% on online because some of my, when I enrolled into a master program at US, some of my courses I went through online learning and it works. Thank you, Rafi, for the questions.
All right, thank you, Prof. So another question is from Hadi Bunyamin. So I am interested to know how do you get many inspirational and interesting idea in transforming teaching? How do you get such inspiration?
Okay, I did not know all of you as an academician in academia. Have you feel sometime you feel bored towards your PowerPoint slide? Do you actually feel certain situation after explaining the PowerPoint slide about 2 or 3 slides and then suddenly you think about this is really boring? And the student, you yourself might be bored on your technique. Okay, I'm actually having that kind of feeling when I actually teach in my class, regardless of through face-to-face or online, because in teaching and learning, I believe the student is observing you. They want something interesting. They spend their time 4 to 7 for my master class in front of you. They want something interesting. They pay the tuition fees. So with this, I myself an instructor, I usually get bored with my PowerPoint slide after one semester. I need to embark into activities that will challenge the student, not only challenge the student in learning, but challenge me also as instructor to try to close the gaps of the concept that I'm going to teach to the student with the real world application of the concept in the real world. So I teach programming, so I'm not going to just teach the codes, but I will actually take the real life problem, into my class, so that when the student's going to solve the problem or do a programming on it, they know that it will benefit, and not only for that, it will benefit what have been cases that we have faced right now. For example, I actually remember every day around 5 to 6 p.m. our Ministry of Health announced the new numbers of cases, COVID-19 cases in Malaysia. So what I did in my class is that I asked the student to monitor it 5 days on the patterns of numbers of cases of COVID-19. And after that, I teach the concept of programming. I ask them to predict, to come up with a program to predict the patterns of COVID-19 cases in Malaysia based on that 5 data. So you can see that this is where you can do it in your teaching and learning. So the inspirations, I got it from my own self because I used to get bored with the same thing that I'm doing it every day. So I need to do new thing. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hadi, for the questions.
All right, thank you, Prof. So we have another question from Muhammad Ashfaruddin Basri from UPM. So how do we utilize the anticipatory sets to keep students engaged and reduce attention span when the teaching and learning activity were implemented virtually?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ashrafuddin, for asking the questions. Yeah, when you, I think last 2 weeks I threw one survey to my students whether they stress or not, having an online learning sessions with me. Okay, how to reduce it? First, don't actually don't focus on the repetitions of factor. You must be concise in your teaching and learning. Another thing is that break your topic into chunk. Don't just straight 1 hour giving lecture to the students through the virtual environment. Break into 10 minutes. I have one technique that I call it a class agenda. I produce a class agenda in my class. What do I mean by class agenda is that I divide the topic into small topics so that the students will actually focusing on it from short, not what I call it, not the whole 30 minutes. Let me share what do I mean by class agenda. I did this. I used this semester. Okay, I got this idea from a session that training session, online training session that I went through from. Can you see the screen? I would like to ask the secretariat to allow me to view the screen. This is a class agenda that I have in my class. I have 10 minutes, the class attendance. I divided 20 minutes. The topic is on human-computer interactions. The notes, the breakout room, and then I break it into small chunk, 10 minutes break, and I do it. Every time in my class, I give this class agenda to my student before they actually join the class. And I have homework here. This is what I did in my class. So if you have your class agenda, I learned this from a forum that I attended on July with the Germany professors. They share, they divide their learning session with the student into agenda, into the class agenda. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Prof. So another question from Sophia Zanti Saleh. Motivation is part of the important things in blended learning. In your personal opinion, what is the best technique to enhance motivation in doing blended learning itself?
Okay, I might be going to answer it on the perspective of instructor, and I'm also going to answer it from the perspective of the students. From the perspective of the instructor, okay, especially if you are academic administrator, I actually embarked into this Innogogy using the blended learning when I've been appointed as an academic administrator since 2004. Since 2004, when I hold a position as the head of departments, as a deputy deans, as a dean, and so on, I don't have enough time. So I really need to use the flipped classroom methods in my class. And how do I use it? I use what you call it, the online learning platforms like e-learning, UTM e-learning system for me to post the task prior to the class. So that is the motivations that actually force you to embark into blended learning. One thing is that you don't have time. I don't have time. But blended learning really helped me a lot. Because just imagine, I think Fazli also observed me, sometimes I was in a meeting at SPS, School of Graduate Study before this. The meeting started at 2:30 and it ended up at 4:30. And I have to rush, drove from SPS to the faculty to enter my class. The class started at 4. So if I did not use blended learning, I did not give the activities prior to my class session. So the 30 minutes from 4 to 4:30, the student will not going to do anything lah. So this is the thing that will force me to do it because you don't have time. And not only the academic administrator, nowadays all the professors don't have time. From the perspective of students, how do you motivate students to stay in the blended learning? Okay, sorry to say, marks, score is the best the things that going to motivate students to keep in the blended learning. So anything you do, activities, you have to give marks. When the students know that this is 2 marks, this is 3 marks, okay, they will stay in it. Okay, but slowly later on, you start to introduce what we call it bonus marks. And when you have so many activities, and student will ignore it. They're not going to ask marks anymore. But starting point in your class, when you embark in the blended learning, they will ask, how many marks, Prof, that you will give it to me if I'm going to involve in the forum? I say 5 marks. If you reply the forum, your peers, if your friend posts something, if you reply it more than 3 times, I give it 2 marks. That is a quantity marks. The other 3 marks, I give it on the quality of your posting in the forum or in the Facebook. You just like in the Facebook group, I give you 1 mark. Okay, so this is how to encourage the student to stay in the blended learning. But throughout the way, the student not going to ask anymore about marks. They will know the benefit of it. They're not going to ask it after the semester break. You can see that they just go with what they have been used to your learning and teaching methods in your class. Okay, I hope I answered Sophia's question.
All right, thank you, Prof. So basically, this question are also related to the question before. So basically, how do you manage students who are unmotivated or off task during ODL?
Okay, I face it also with my students, but what I did is that I contact the student personally. Okay, I had one student who actually Universiti Malaysia Pahang staff, and he actually in my class, and he's actually a lecturer of Universiti Malaysia Pahang. Okay, you can see that this person should be motivated enough lah, kan? Because he's the lecturer. But when it comes to learning, yeah, he's a human being. He need helps. He having problems on the internet line at home. Okay, so what I did is that I contact him personally. I asked what is actually his problem. He said that he having problem with the internet line. He cannot catch the way that I teach in the class when you have the normal session with your student. So what I did is that I give an extra tuition session for this student. When the student realize that you, yourself an instructor, allocate time personally to the student, they will appreciate it. They will appreciate it and they start to motivate it enough to join your class. You have to show that you care about them, you are passionate on your teaching and learning, you are sincere on it. So I contact the student personally. Another thing is that you must actually answer student WhatsApp as soon as you receive it. If a student WhatsApp you, sometimes you look at it, you don't have time to type long response. You just say, okay, I will look into it. Sorry, I'm in a meeting. I will answer it around 3. And keep actually message the student. How are you? Are you okay? Have you done? These are the parts of the what we call it, not have been explained or shared in any learning theory part. But this is what we call it empathy, that you are caring about the student. You need to motivate the student to stay on it and do it personally. But you cannot have a session WebEx online 1-to-1. Just it's quite enough. Just text the students, or might be send an email to the student to show that you're concerned about it. Okay, that's what I did in my class. Thank you, Siti Suhaila.
All right, thank you, Prof. Last question from the audience. So from Ibrahim Gambo. So how can you close the gap of one-to-one interaction in the case of high number of students apart from the social media platforms by means of other educational technology?
Okay, what you can do, Dr. Ibrahim Gambo, is that I have been experienced this before in 2004. 2004, I taught a class a size of 80 students in a class. And I taught almost 5 sections. So you 80 times 80, 50 students times 5 is 200 something, isn't it? So what I did is that at that time is that how do you actually close the gap? Because you don't have you cannot do one-to-one interaction when you have 50 students, 60 students in a class. What you can do is that you identify the smart student in your class. You monitor it. You can see that from the 50 students that you have 10 smart students who really independent, who really motivated in learning. You assign them as a buddy in your class. Okay? So this buddy, this is the one that you're going to train them first about the topic that you're going to teach. Because outside your class session, there will be what we call it the peer tutoring. Then you assign these peers to help their colleagues in learning. Okay, I did not give marks for peer tutoring. they are volunteer to do that. But what they get in return is that they will be smarter than anybody, because when you teach someone, you learn better. Actually, learning is about something. If you want to learn something new, the best way is that by teaching others. So you have to identify some students that really need help, or really good, or student might be at the moderate levels that where they're quite slow, but they still can follow your the learning process. Then you ask the smart student to help others. This is also a part of inculcating the skill of communication and respect among the student. The student need to respect others in their class. Okay, so that's why I can share it, Dr. Ibrahim. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Prof. Right, so we are now approaching to the end of the session. I would like to thank our speaker, Professor Teknologi, Dr. Zaidatun Tasir, for your wonderful speech today. Right, so all of you are invited to join the session for tomorrow. All right, 9 December 2020. Either in workshop, plenary session, and also the keynote session. Right. Thank you for everyone for your participation in this session. I hope you are really enjoy and become excited to renew our commitment in teaching and learning, in particular, especially in educational in general. With that, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you.
Welcome to NALI 2020.
NALI 2020.
NALI 2020.
NALI 2020. Cenggini.
NALI 2020. NALI 2020.